Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War event objectives for the Forest Fights Back event in which the Forsaken Guardian is added to the game. So, we got a lot of things to go over in this video. We have the entire event calendar for the month of September. We have the 8.8 patch notes, which is going to be happening either this week or next week as far as the patch, with it affecting the Guild War that's in 2 weeks from now, which means the patch is probably next week, given that they had to delay the Guild Wars by a week, as a lot of the things in the patch end up affecting Guild Wars, so we'll be going over that as well. Of course, the Beast event has ended up concluding, so you could finish out all your points in that. And speaking of things that are concluding, the current campaign, this is the final week to go and complete it. With that being said, we're also getting 2 Mythics this week. One from this campaign that we'll be messing around with a little bit. I might even cover a separate video on it, as we'll be messing around with teams tonight and see if it's actually worthwhile, because it might be. This is the first campaign Mythic in a long while that actually seems good. Plus, we're getting a half-decent one seemingly this Friday as well, so the standard Friday Mythic. So let's start getting into everything, all the weekly teams, all the everythings, and also Soulforge has something pretty special too this week. But let's start one thing at a time and start with the September event calendar. So of course, here, link in description as well, is the entire calendar for this month. The only thing that really stands out are 2 things. One is the Talk Like a Pirate Day pet on the 17th of Wednesday. That Wednesday, make sure to go and grab that. And we're probably getting a patch on this knife, though it could be tomorrow, but likely on this knife that will be affecting this Guild War on the 18th. It'll be doing a few other things as well, which we'll be getting to in a moment in the little patch notes over there. However, yeah, most likely that day we're getting the patch, and then the 18th would be the Guild War itself for Red Guild War, which is actually a pretty decent restriction, as Red is, you know, pretty much previous Guild War format where you used to have the color restrictions, is by far the strongest layout we've ever had for Guild War, so it'll be interesting to see how it ends up panning out and go from there. But beyond that, pretty standard week or month. We have a Vault Week in there, but beyond that, the patch and the pet, not really much going on event-wise. You can see it's just basically full white. So no real big events. Obviously, we'll have like the Halloween thing in October, a bunch of stuff like that, but pretty average month other than the patch coming in. With that being said, we do have a patch coming in. This is either tomorrow or next week's Tuesday, most likely. I would assume next week's Tuesday, but there's a non-zero chance it is tomorrow. Though, regardless of which one it is, it doesn't really matter too much because most of these affected in the next Guild War. Basically, it'll be some Guardian boost that you can end up doing. From what I could tell, this is completely pointless because the Guardian, even if they had 10 times more stats, because these should only affect the battles that are like your gate and stuff like that, or if somehow you have your guild not set up a defend team in a given location. So given how weak these are going to be and already are, these could have like 1,000 all stats and you'd probably still be fine. Maybe not 1,000, but if these had like 400 all stats, 500 all stats, I'm pretty sure they would still be pretty manageable, at least later in the game anyways. So these boost things, if they're only affecting that first battle pretty much, are pretty much pointless. Yes, they only cost silver marks, so they're pretty much free, since silver marks don't really have anywhere to be dumped. However, yeah, it's still not worth it, from what I could tell, because he seems to only be affecting the guild boosts, or the Guardian boost. It doesn't seem to affect the entire team, like on the other battles. I could be wrong on that, but it seems to only affect the Guardian battles themselves, which is kind of pointless, because that's not going to end up doing much at all. Even if that was like hundreds of stats, it would barely make a difference if it only affected those battles. The main thing that's really relevant, though, is the results screens. So, of course, some things that we had in the past were a bunch of results for Guild Wars. We could end up seeing the contribution per person, your own contributions, stuff like that. However, now we have all of that and seemingly way, way, way more as far as all the data that we'll end up having. We'll have leaderboard ranks, ELO ratings, daily war scores for every single person in the guild, the ELO change in results, the total battles, the morale bonus, the conquest bonuses, the total number of keep defenders, keep location wins versus number of battles, and Guild War performance as score up versus wins. So pretty much any data point that you would possibly want to have, it essentially has absolutely all of them for everything. Many of which did not even exist in the previous Guild War, so this is going to be pretty huge. This was kind of annoying when the new Guild War format came out, as some of these were already in the previous system, like this one, for example. However, now we have all that back, as well as a bunch of additional information that you can end up getting. So a lot of info that you'll be able to know, track, and just kind of see the contribution over time for your guild, both individually and as the totality of the guild. So overall, pretty nice. Bunch of other small changes to Guild Wars. Don't think anything here was particularly relevant other than them nerfing purple place for some reason. Not sure why they're making that place even worse. Oh yeah, one thing was pretty relevant here. They're doubling the amount of gold marks. I thought this was originally just gold, but yeah, I think they actually clarified with saying marks here because it was worded a little bit weirdly in one of these sentences. But the gold marks is actually increasing from 10 to 20, effectively doubling the amount of gold marks you get whenever you win. And of course, this is affected by your morale bonus as well. So whatever your morale bonus is affects this as well. So it's doubling, a bare minimum, doubling the amount of gold marks you're getting. This is massive. As far as how many deed books and other things that use gold marks you'll be able to go and use them on. As if your guild is constantly winning, especially if you could win all 4, that is over a deed book per week if you can actually end up getting that many wins. So that's going to be a pretty nice buff to the amounts that you'll be able to get, though of course does require your guild winning on a given day. Beyond that, oh yeah, there's one other thing in here too. You'll be able to go see, I forget where it mentions it in all this mess, but you'll be able to go see the stuff beforehand too. So like right now, for example, if I want to go see like, because I haven't looked at the spoiler threads, let's say right now I wanted to go in-game check what the next Guild War troop is. For example, we can see it's red. However, I can't go and check like, oh, what is the new troop that we're getting? But you'll be able to do that after next patch. You'll be able to go and pre-buy this if you wanted to. But more importantly, you'll be able to go to rewards and see what the shiny troop is for the upcoming event. So you can either try to get it, plan around it, everything else like that, to end up knowing if you end up wanting to go for it, or to even own the troop to know that it might be a little bit stronger since you can get it max shiny by the end, or partially shiny if you, just did free battles. So that'll be nice. Obviously, it's not going to be something like Tesla for red. That'd be so strong. But at least ahead of time, we'll be able to know going forward what that troop is. So you can kind of plan around it if you want to build a team specifically around whatever that shiny troop is for a given event. Beyond that, we're going to get a monolith filter. Most of these filters aren't really going to do too much of a benefit, but the main one being, as far as usefulness, being buff type. So if you want to find a bunch of magic buffs, if you want to find a bunch of reduction buffs, whatever they're going to be categorized as, yeah, it'll be a little bit easier to go and find them. Pretty sure by now most people who've already been playing kind of already know a bunch of locations where you can go to go get those buffs. But this will make it better for newer players, as well as if you might forget where one of it is, you just type in what the buff type is, or put it in the drop-down menu here, go to magic, go to reduction, go to whatever it might be named for whatever type of buff you want, and then boom, you just find every single one of them, and you just grab all the applicable ones as you wish. You could technically do it by region too, but you could already do that pretty easily through the menu itself. But I guess if you use 2 of these at once, it might be useful. Like if you want to go to an easy region, like one of the center 4, like the center or the colored ones, and then also want a buff type like magic, so you could bring up all the menu very quickly like that, so you don't have to go through a bunch of menus. You might just be able to stay in this menu and just go from one to the other. Like let's say you want a double magic buff, instead of having to go all the way to the map menu, you might be able to go and just type in magic, or have the buff magic drop down, and then instead of having to go all the way through the map menu, click over to the other location, you should hopefully be able to just stay in this menu, go for one, get all the magic, go for the other, go for all the magic, and you don't have to go through like a billion different screens to get there, assumably, based on how this works. I wasn't in the beta, so I have no clue, but I would assume that's how it works, so you wouldn't have to jump around between a billion different screens to go and do that. So that'll be nice. Beyond that, we're also going to get a PvP summary thing. It'll stay for the first week. You'll be able to go see all of your PvP contribution, as well as score, everything else, as well as your tokens be converted. You generally want to use these before the end of the season, but if you don't, it'll show the conversion rate of them, which is basically 0. I think it's like 20%. It is very small. You generally want to use them at some point before the end of the season. Normally, you want to cash them in to try to get top 3, so you can basically convert them into gold marks, so you could put those into deed books. However, you generally want to use them before the end of the season, because even though they can get you a little bit of a boost on the following season, they're only doing 20% of their value instead of the full 100%. Still not sure why these aren't 50% value, or even just 100% value going into the next season. Well, I guess 100% would be a little bit broken, but these got to be at least like 50%, if not 80 or 90 or something. Like, I understand why they don't want it to be 100%, but it needs to be something closer to 100%. Because 20% is just laughably bad. Anyways, beyond that, we're getting a new level up menu with a new background thingy. Just a nice clean menu. Obviously, later in the game, you're probably not going to be seeing this menu too often, but as a newer player, you'll probably be seeing this constantly, so they kind of cleaned up this menu. The reward screen, make it a little bit easier to tell every single reward that you're going to be getting, as it's one of the few that didn't really get updated in all the updates that they've been doing over time, so they finally end up updating it to the newer kind of style within the game. We're also getting 3 new achievements, all of which are very easily. 5 monolith battles are literally just do your daily monolith battles, like go do your 3 daily Valhawk, and then go use your 6 daily monoliths, which you only have to do 5 of them, so 1 daily, you get that done. Win 10 Guild War battles can be done in a single Guild War as long as you have at least 50% win rate, and win 25 quick matches, PvP battles can be done just by doing the weekly PvP, or, you know, doing bare minimum PvP dailies for an entire week, or of course could just be power grinded within about half an hour or so if you just want to go and just spam a bunch of battles down in like Central or some other similar easy location. But yeah, that's pretty much it. They're adding a new heroic gem, bleed, and I believe one other one they were adding, both of which don't seem like they're really going to be doing too much, but might be able to have some kind of synergy as we get more troops that end up, you know, utilizing such a mechanic. So be able to be useful in that regard. Morale bonus show. Oh, never mind. That was just the bug fix thing. And yeah, pretty sure that's just about everything from 8.8. We will go over a little bit more in depth when we actually have it like in game, when we could actually see everything. That's just a quick overview. Full list in the description if you want to go read through it yourself. Beyond that, a billion other things. One thing I actually want to go a little bit out of order for before we go over teams and other things. There is something very, very, very special in SoulForge, unless I forgot about it one week. I believe this is the first time it has ever happened. So of course, as many of you guys know, we've been getting, if you go to PvP, since PvP seasons have started, however long ago that was, I think earlier this year, we've been getting new troops that are over here, that require you to get 150,000 rating in a given season. One costs 25 deed books, which you never, ever want to go for. It is so expensive. It could be the best mythic in the game, and is still not worth doing for 25 deed books. And the other one, which is basically free because silver marks have nothing to dump into. Generally, it is always worth buying this free legend one. But basically, the way that these work is they will only ever return in SoulForge specifically. They will not be in chest drop table ever, or anything like that. You have to get them through SoulForge. So if you're ever able to get this, you save 800 diamonds, which is worth it because these silver marks are worth nothing. So you can convert them into saving 800 diamonds by getting this, as long as you get 150,000 PvP rating within a given season. And then there's the one that's not worth doing, but you can end up getting later down the line for 4,000 diamonds, as 4,000 diamonds is way better value to be spending on this rather than the equivalence of 25 deed books, which of course when I referred to that is whenever you do these, you can go and do these 3 per day with whatever you have. No way, I'm on such a purple dry streak. There's no way I'm going to get triple yellow here. Finally! We earned like a 30-something dry streak on this, by the way. But we finally broke it. Anyways, it's supposed to be even 1 to 6, I assume. Unless there's a weird drop rate for them. But anyways, generally it's better to be throwing all your gold marks into deed books. A few other things you could technically put into, but I would say deed books is the overall best value that you can end up putting them into. But, which is why I normally refer to this as costing 25 deed books. Almost no mythic is worth 25 deed books, comparatively. So instead, you normally want to wait until they rotate around for diamonds in SoulForge. However, this has actually not happened a single time yet, unless I forgot of an instance, and forgot to mention it one week. However, I'm pretty sure this has never happened yet, until today. But yeah, we got one. I believe this was from the first season or second season, but we have Ala al-Din. This is basically famine, but weirder. Instead of draining all enemies and hitting one very hard, he drains one enemy and hits all enemies. So it's 1 drain, 4 hits, instead of 4 drain, 1 hit. So basically inverse famine in that regard. Overall, it's better and worse than famine. As a troop, I feel like it's worse than famine in the sense that if you want mana drain like that badly, you probably want a 4 times mana drain. Otherwise, things like cockatrice, low rarity things that mana drain are pretty much better than this guy due to him having 24 mana cost with no chance of extra turning. So generally in that regard, from a mana drain perspective, famine is going to be substantially better than ever running this troop. However, the main benefit that this has over famine is he does count as a troop for a kingdom. Famine, of course, is from Apocalypse, which is currently not associated with any kingdom, so it's not helping you upgrade any kingdom, meaning you can basically keep ignoring it for all time and basically just get it after you've completed the entire game, and just get it all the way at the end just to have it for completion's sake. However, Ala al-Din is actually associated to Leonis Empire, so if you haven't already gotten Leonis Empire to 30 star, which you don't need him for 30 star, I believe I already have, let's see, where is it? Leonis Empire? Oh no, I didn't actually upgrade Leonis Empire, I was thinking of Drifting Sands, but I think it already is possible to 30 star without him. However, it does contribute to 30 starring a kingdom. So this is something that Famine and of course all the Apocalypse troops doesn't end up doing, whereas this guy does. Is he ever worth using? Not really. He has a little bit of like a potion effect thing, but it's too rare to really bother really getting much value from. A little bit of spell reduction, but ultimately not going to be doing much of your mana drain the enemy anyways. And of course he has only 1 mana drain with no follow-up whatsoever, which is weaker than the lower rarity troops that have mana drain into follow-up, as well as troops that have 4 times mana drain like Famine. So there's pretty much no use case for this other than having him for a single copy. So I'll simply just go and get him, upgrade him, and just simply have him for completion's sake, and for upgrading the kingdom for later down the line. However, he is probably not worth ever using, but is worth mentioning as this is the first time that you can get him ever for 4,000 diamonds if you didn't end up spending 25 deed books to get him in the pass. So whenever those do rotate around, definitely make sure to go and get them if you're later in the game. Otherwise, get them if they're actually applicable. For the most part, most of them are pretty average or weak, but some of them have some niche instances. Like one of the merfolk ones I think was actually pretty decent. End up like assisting some merfolk teams, a handful of them. Where is it? Somewhere's in all this mess. Where's the merfolk one? Or was it on the legend? Oh, I think it was the legend. I already got it. Never mind. I thought it was on the mythic for a moment. But, you know, there's some like these that have like very niche abilities that generally aren't really going to get used that much, but have like some kind of small use case. But for the most part, they've been pretty ignorable in the past. But when they do rotate in Soulforge now, if you're later in the game, you might want to get them, as it'll help upgrade kingdoms, and just to have them so you know, end up having them, since they're the first time that they've basically been available for a non-exceedingly high amount of cost. Since we're already in Soulforge, might as well go over weapons as well. There are 2 weapons worth crafting this week. Actually 3. Stone Slicer, I forgot this was available this week. I didn't actually use this on any team, but it's a very, very good construct team. So particularly Geomancer. This is relevant because even though this is Droxzoom, Geomancer does not reside in Droxzoom. But if you're ever building a 4x construct team, this is really, really good. Creates a bunch of purple and brown. One thing that's really noteworthy about this is it uses purple, and of course most constructs are brown. So this is among one of the best double gem creation weapons in the entire game. Unfortunately, no auto extra turn. It does have brown storm attached to it though. No auto extra turn like the goblin one. But it is very, very strong, like top 3, top 5 as far as the double gem creating weapons are concerned, as it feeds back into itself and feeds into the core color that all constructs use. And there's a 50% mana start hero class that ends up utilizing this as well, that you can build a 4x construct team to have both 50% mana start for your hero, as well as for all the constructs on your team. So really, really great weapon. Unfortunately, not much synergy within Droxzoom itself, but really, really good in a 4x Geomancer team, 4x construct team, stuff like that, whenever they are applicable. Beyond that, there's also 2 other weapons worth considering, one being the Ink of Nefertani. You eventually need the Ink of Nefertani in order to go and craft a Deathbringer. We actually had another component for this the other week as well with the Scarab of Nefertani. So hey, you're only missing 1 piece now, unless you already have it in the past. So in just the last few weeks, we've already gotten almost the entirety of Dustbringer. So yeah, definitely make sure to keep crafting these. Anytime you ever see a component for one of these weapons worth doing, even though Dustbringer is the worst of the 1 million soul weapons, it is still something you eventually want to end up getting just to have for utility's sake. It does have 4x Death Mark. Some rare circumstances you can end up bringing it out. But you want to get all the components, so for when you do eventually want to craft it down the line, you'll be able to, rather than having to wait almost a year for all these weapons to rotate. And beyond that, I do show this for one of the budget teams, even though it's a little bit of an expensive weapon, but just because there's so few things to run for Underspire this week. However, Doomed Impaler, really, really good weapon if you need damage for Underspire this week, if you're missing some of the Mythics or other team synergies that would otherwise exist. It deals a bunch of damage to the first 2 enemies, plus 2 per temporary level, and then creates a ton of red gems based on every red ally and enemy. So for this, you basically want to just build a pure 4x red team, hope the enemy has at least 1 red on their team, and just create a billion gems every single time you end up casting. Overall, really great value, and just keep spamming this over and over again until you win. And for lower rarity teams is going to be by far your best option for doing Underspire this week if you're planning to do Underspire, as low rarity Underspire this week is pretty unfortunate if you don't own this weapon, as there are very, very few damage sources that you have access to for current Underspire. With all that being said, let's go over all of the teams for the week, all of which will be in the description below if you want to go and copy paste any of them. So, first one we have here, Journey Event. Journey Event is specifically Brown Dwarf this week. Basically, you just have to go use... I just realized, did I not use the team for the other thing? Did I forget to put it on? No, I did remember. I was just double checking, because I know I forgot for one of them earlier. I know I fixed them both earlier. But anyways, so of course, new Journey Troop. This is not in the event key drop table. You have to simply get it from the event itself. Just going up to the weapon, you'll get a copy of him as well as the weapon, just to have it for completion's sake. But of course, you want to have this fully upgraded on your team. Unlike things like raids and evasions, you do need to upgrade this to get max score. So simply having a copy on your team will not give you max score and only give you 2 times. You do need to go and fully ascend it with blue orbs or by buying deeper into the past in order to get it to the full 3 times bonus. But beyond that, it does pretty standard Journey Trip stuff. Just deals a bunch of damage to an enemy, creates a bunch of brown gems boosted by a specific type, in this case Dwarf allies. So obviously just run a 4 times Dwarf team and just go crazy from there. We're using Rune Priest, running 50% mana start. Obviously getting all the bonuses from that from being pure Dwarf, as well as heavy Kizil. And we're just building a bunch of mana accumulators around it, using Ruby Weapon just for damage pressure. This guy can also do a lot of damage. We're using as our primary damage in the low rarity team, but on this team is kind of just offsetting our damage to if they get resummoned or something. Excavator here is just to create a bunch of red gems for the core of our team, mostly for the ruby weapon, but all excess does go into King Highforge. If you have King Highforge, you definitely want to be using it. Of course, got shinied a couple events ago as well, a couple guild wars ago, but even if you have him at shiny level 0, it doesn't really matter too much. You're mostly using him for his 50% mana start. The only reason you really cast him is for his little bit of stun, but also because of his dwarf resummon. So if you do start losing your team, you'll be able to go and resummon to be able to get some of your points back and everything. And also has a little bit of damage pressure, though most of your damage pressure, at least in this context, if you have ruby weapon, is coming from your ruby weapon. This is basically an all-in ruby weapon spam team, and you're just using these two to offset if they end up happening to summon. But your entire team is basically just spam ruby, and his class is really tanky. Gains barrier on Brown, has Brown Storm to go with it, has the rest of the team kind of supporting it. So generally, you won't really die on first slot. It's pretty bulky, and you're just trying to go and kill out from there. You could end up putting some kind of tank or something else in first slot to offset it a little bit if you find it's dying too much. But generally, with how much barrier you have and just all the extra stats from you know, the team typing, you should generally be surviving. And the main reason you want to be doing this is, of course, you do start losing points in journeys if your battle starts to take too long. So this is mostly to try to power rush them down in order to go and preserve more of your score. As far as the low rarity team, unfortunately, there's not too many good damage options. So we're just using Wand of Stars or whatever your best mana accumulation weapon is that exists under Brown. It does specifically have to be a Brown weapon. It doesn't have to be from Dark Zoom or any location, but it does have to be Brown, whatever you're using here, which makes Wand of Stars nice because it covers every other color. Otherwise, you might be mana blocking a little bit too much otherwise. But if you don't have this, just use whatever your best Brown Explodey weapon is. Probably a good Brown-Red one that you can end up putting there. If you do end up going down the Brown-Red Explodey weapon route, you might want to put something else in your first slot to offset it. So when that first slot dies, you'll be able to go and resummon rather than letting your hero tank. Though in this situation, we are letting hero tank. And of course, our main damage sources are going to be the new invasion troop itself, using the Cormac, the Restless, as our main damage. He does have double magic during the journey event, so basically just be spamming this until you end up winning. It's also why we're using Rune Priest, even though we don't have a 50% mana start on our team, though you do want to do that if you have it. Go put, basically both of these you should be replacing out if you have better damage source. If you have High Forge, put it on this team. If you have something else that could do like any amount of extra damage, put them on your team. The only reason we're doing this is they both have Empower. They can also both do triple damage if the type happens to be on the enemy team. If the enemy happens to have a giant or a monster, you can do triple damage, effectively pretty much one-shotting them, or at least doing substantial amount of damage to them. So you do have access to that, but if you have better damage sources, particularly High Forge, to go get your 50% mana start for your team, definitely make sure to go do that. This is mostly just the really budget ones, as these you get for free. This is from completing out the Stormheim Kingdom, so you get them for free from that. It is from completing out the Drakzoom Kingdom for the storyline for both kingdoms. And of course, this is from the event itself, and then the only hard thing to get is your mana accumulation option. Ideally, hopefully, you have Wand of Stars laying around. Beyond that, we have a blue-purple restriction for Underspire for Alithia. For Underworld, I mean. For this, we're just running a standard quick kill Rowan team, just with Mirage going for 50% mana start, Leprechaun to get everything rolling with Empower into mass mana accumulation, and just Rowan for the one-shot. The higher rarity team, we are running just simple double Tesla, using Leprechaun to get it up, Wand of Stars to offset, and also to curse. We're also using Mech, so we have Dispel too, and then just spamming Tesla until you win. And for Pure Faction, a couple different ways you could run this. But the main premise of this place is you want to go and spam Alithian Savitor until you win. Everything else on the team is just to assist that. So for our first slot, we're just running 50% reduction troop, just so that it could tank. You generally don't want to be casting this guy unless he's getting low. And if he is, you can steal a bunch of magic to gain a bunch of life and armor. You can also do this to pressure whatever is really about to cast on the enemy team to make sure that they don't end up casting. It is kind of doing similar. Trying to steal their magic so they can't do as much value when they do cast, and just shifting it to a bunch of stats, which hopefully will land on magic. If you don't want to end up going down this route, you can just go a third Alithian Servitor, but you do generally want to run the Colossus just so you have a solid tank in first slot, so you can bring it to the final battle. But if your whole team was 3 Alithian Servitors going to the final fight, you'd be perfectly fine most of the time. You just have to make sure you outdamage them, as long as your stats are decent. As far as Slayer class event, this is specifically dwarves from Drakzoom. With that being said, we're basically just using Mana Link. You can also use the Empower Troop, but we're just using Mana Link to feed into a good weapon. In this case, we're using Rupee. If you don't have Rupee, use Dawnbringer. If you don't have Dawnbringer, use Summer's Fury, which you get from just leveling up your hero in Red Mastery. So just run whatever your best red weapon is that hits all enemies, and just spam that until you win. As far as Underspire is concerned, this is specifically Drakzoom weapon and Drakzoom troops, though you're allowed to use absolutely any of them. For this, we are using the new Mythic. We will have one team I do want to go show with this. Not this one, but one team I do want to go show with this and go and use it. So, of course, the campaign, as we were mentioning, is ending this month. This week, I mean. So make sure to go and complete it, the campaign over here, as far as your pass. If you bought, or even if you on free side, you still get a bunch of, you know, the free rewards going up to it. You still get the extra stats. But of course, if you paid for the basic pass, you end up getting not only the mythic, but also in the previous patch that they end up doing, the new shiny tokens. So it'll be enough to get it to shiny level 2, which is both an enhanced ability and 1 lower mana cost. And if you bought the mega pass, you technically would have already had this 2 weeks ago, but you would also have it to max level shiny by this week to be able to go and get the last of those. But yeah, overall, pretty good troop. It's basically like alternative Megavore. One other thing to mention with this too is don't forget, if you haven't finished any of these campaign tasks that have been going on for the last 10 weeks, or technically the last 9 weeks, this is the final week for it. This is the final week to complete them. So if you still have anything in this menu that is not completed, particularly for the better categories, like the favored enemy and any of these that are D-book related, like Heroic Master, Match Master, and Brawler. I mean, sorry, not Brawler, I mean Slayer. Any of these categories, if you have not completed them, 100% make sure to do. They are insanely good loot, and one of the biggest buffs that they end up doing to Freeside too, as I don't think Freeside had a gold medal or even silver medal in the past, and a few things like that. So overall, really, really great. You don't need to have the pass or anything to go and do these, but they do conclude after this week, so any of these that you don't have completed will be gone after this week. So if you haven't already done these over the last 9 weeks, make sure to do so, as whatever the timer says there is the final time you have to do so. And then when the next campaign starts, of course, we'll have a new fresh set of these to go and complete over the 10-week period of the next campaign, though there will be 1 week of downtime next week, of course, in between those, which is also probably the time that we're getting the patch, since it's the 1 week of downtime time, and they love putting patches there. Anyways, beyond that, oh yeah, we're going over team still. So we're mentioning the high rarity Underspare team. Basically for this, we're using 4x stun with Obsidious. Trying not to cast it too much, but near the end of the battle we can. Using our main mana accumulation option of Stonecaller. This gives a bunch of extra stats to all Drug Zoom allies on your team. We're using pure Drug Zoom other than Hero because we want 50% mana start. Beyond that, we're using the new Gormangandr, which is going to be the main thing that you kind of want to do initially. This thing is kind of like Megavore, except a little bit more conditional. But if it ends up securing a kill, it will end up destroying all armor of all remaining enemies. So this will be really good to basically turn everything on your team into true damage. So Obsidious basically then does true damage, even though it's physical. The Gem Dragon will start doing physical damage effectively, even though it's physical as well. So you basically just want to secure a kill with this immediately, and then go kill with everything else on your team. It's pretty much the game plan here. It also gets to create 2 brown gems every single turn, specifically Curse Gems, which has really good synergy with Obsidious, because of course he has 4x stun, and then you have basically 4x Curse into 4x stun with the combination of the 2 of them together. And the Gem Dragon here can pretty much be anything, but we're just offsetting it for a little bit extra damage. But you can kind of put whatever you want there to offset the team if you want more mana accumulation or whatever else, as the core of the team is Obsidious mana accumulation into Gormangandr. The 4th slot is pretty flexible. For our low rarity team, we're running Doomed Impaler that we were mentioning earlier. This is in Soulforge, so if you don't have it, you can get it this week. It is a little bit expensive to get in Soulforge, but it's definitely worth it in the long run, as you'll probably be using this for a lot of other events in the future as well, not just this one. But it deals a bunch of damage to the first 2 enemies, plus we already kind of went over this earlier, but yeah, it's basically a weapon you want to run with a pure red team. And just, oh yeah, speaking of which, Guild War, I didn't even think about that. Red Guild War is right around the corner. If you have nothing to run for Red Guild War, this would be great too. I didn't even think about that till literally right now. But yeah, Red Guild War is in like 2 weeks. So yeah, even more of a reason to go get this weapon. I didn't think about that. But of course, they're probably going to counter your red enough that this might not be viable. But if you want to, this could potentially in some situations be a really, really good Red Guild War weapon to consider. If you're not running like Wander Stars or something similar. So yeah, definitely even more of a reason to go consider it. Wow, that's even better. But yeah, with this, we're just running a pure red team to go and basically just cheese this weapon. We're running this for 50% reduction, just to tank a little bit. You could offset this and just have your hero tank, but this is a low rarity team, so if your hero is not durable enough to tank, this can kind of offset it a little bit. But beyond that, we're just basically spamming this weapon until we win. And this is mostly just here to use all of our excess red. It gets to explode 2 freeze gems for free, since it has auto extra turn. Or sorry, it gets to explode 2 random gems, freeze a random enemy, and then gains extra turn. So not only are you getting spammed extra turn from this, but from being able to spam this into auto extra turn, assuming you're not stunned. I mean, assuming you're not frozen, which you'd have to be stunned frozen because he's immune to freeze. But you also get to freeze the enemy. So even if you do end up losing your turn eventually, they will likely also lose their turn. So yeah, overall, not bad. You're basically spamming this weapon until you win. Overall, not too many good damage sources from this kingdom, but if you can get your hands on a Doomed Impaler, it ends up working out really well, not only for this Underspire, but also for Red Guild War soon, as well as for other game modes in the future. So yeah, really great weapon. Honestly, advise getting all these ones. This is probably... honestly, I would even say the best category of Doom weapon these days. The one that does like the Doom Skull convert into the full AoE damage and everything, still probably the overall best. But these, and just how the game modes have been recently, like when you have pure color restrictions, are just really good to bring out if you're missing options for it. So definitely make sure to get that if you can scrap the resources for it together, which hopefully you can, since we just had Vault Weekend last weekend. So if you've got a bunch of resources from that, from the Jewel Gnomes, hopefully you have enough for that. These will just be in text form since there's no way to copy paste these, but of course the standard 2 bounty hunter teams, same as always, this Ogress, whatever your best damage source is in the Forest Gremlin, if you're going for quick kill team, but obviously the bounty captain being in the 4th slot. And for a 4 times team for max score, you do Ogress, Tagraki Warrior Corpse Mirror, and a new one coming out. Oddly enough, they didn't show the new Mythic, but I believe on the weekly post they actually did show the bounty troop for once, instead of having to go through the spoiler threads. But yeah, the Bounty Hunter week, we can actually see what it does. Deals some damage. It's a brown-yellow that deals a bunch of damage to a random enemy, boosted by Gargoyle Gems, and then creates 4 random Gargoyle Gems. Overall, not really anything too special. Its traits are kind of interesting, though. It does get to do Hunter's Mark into 50% reduction. So in a future Skull Spam team, this could maybe be okay. They're definitely starting to work a little bit closer to try to get a Skull Spam team working. The only problem with this is it does block Brown and Ogress if you were to do something like that in the future. Or for whatever other mana accumulator you might end up doing. But overall, yeah, it's not bad. You're probably not going to be using it much beyond this week, though, for the bounty event. And it's probably still going to be your last slot, even though this is pretty good in first slot, mostly because you want your Ogress to be getting as much mana accumulation as you can across your team. But similar to most bounties, it's just not really going to change much as far as how you end up playing it. You're just going to plop it into your 4th slot and just do standard team to go win them out. And just do a bunch of true damage pressure in order to kill them out for max score. Or if you're doing the budget quick kill team, you're just, or not really budget team, but if you're doing the get event done quick team, you're just running whatever your best damage source is in 2nd slot. Obviously, it doesn't have to be Flower Dragon. Could use Stellarix. Could use Hero with a really good weapon. Could be absolutely anything. But it generally wants to be damage because you already have enough mana accumulation. It wants to be some kind of damage source that can win the battle very quickly. Because the whole premise of this team is just to get Bounty Hunter done in like under an hour or even quicker than that. Pretty much half an hour these days with the current endgame stats and, you know, if you have Flower Dragon or Stellarix. But otherwise, it's about an hour just running your best damage source here, even just like a Tesla or something. Just whatever your best damage option is and just plop it in, mana accumulate around it, and go from there. And you're good to go to get the event done quickly. And then the team I want to go show. We have ourselves a Gorgamander. So I'm using Slayer for this, and instead of doing like a Zolgoth Skull Spam team, we're running with a Gorgamander version of this. Is this worth doing? I have no clue, but we're going to try it. We'll probably cover a video on this sometime this week, as I kind of want to mess around just to kind of see if it's going to be worth actually covering. Because a lot of times in the past, I haven't really covered too much the campaign mythics just because they've been really, really bad. I did at first, but then they were doing so many bad ones in a row that it wasn't really worth covering. However, now I think we are going to cover a video for it sometime this week, probably before the mythic one this Friday. Because, yeah, he's looking kind of decent. He's looking pretty decent. So the whole premise with this team, of course, is we have access to both Curse and, well, I guess Wand of Stars could already Curse, though. But we're using it for the armor tier. So we're basically trying to chip them down into one-shot range, then one-shotting, and making sure that we could one-shot everything going forward. So we're going to go use a Wand of Stars, go get all of our mana accumulation, go, and the only thing this team is really missing, which I was considering like something in last slot to kind of get skulls instead of burn route, is we don't really have a good way of getting skulls. So if the board doesn't like give us a skull setup, we're not really going to be able to go and get one. Oh, does this team already have enough damage? Oh no! I forgot about that. This setup already has enough damage to one-shot Explore 12. Oh, that's funny. I was going to do this so that we can get into kill range to go do that. However, we already have so much damage because Slayer classes is so insane that, yeah, it's already within damage range. So you technically don't need that build up to go and do it. But of course, the whole premise of this thing is that you do get something into kill range, which could be hard to do now because normally you would do a small scope poke to get them into kill range. But our scope pokes are killing, so I don't. So we can't actually end up doing that. But of course, well, I guess I can't even show it. I might as well just kill it all the way out. Okay, let me try. Well, if this is the case, let me go for Plan B. Wait. Plan B time. Plan B. No, that would still one-shot, though, because of Slayer. Because I was going to say, I was going to put Zolgoth here, but then that would still have the same issue as before. What if we don't have Burn? Let's put Keeper of Souls or something. Because I want something that uses brown. Like, I basically want a Skull Crater that uses brown. So let's go down this route. I'll still keep it at brown, that's fine. So now we shouldn't one-shot, though using Slayer, I guess, is a little bit less relevant now. But now we should... Oh, I guess they are both from Drakzoom, so you still get a little bit of team bonus. So now what should happen is we don't one-shot when we do a skull. And then we can go get them into kill range. There we go. Perfect. So there you notice we did not one-shot, which could be seen as a good thing or a bad thing. However, Now we can set up into the one-shot. So, of course, the premise of, if I could ever stop getting extra turns here. Please stop. I'm just trying to do my turn. All right, I think that's all of them. But, oh, wait, I don't have mana yet. Okay, wait, hold, wait. All right, now we can go and kill it. So, of course, this guy is basically a very conditional Megavore. It's not like Megavore where you could just cast it outright. You do need to go and get them into kill range. However, his second perk when you get him to Shiny level 2, which you get automatically if you bought the pass, as far as his troop, he'll be in drop table in like a few months from now, same as his Shiny token. But once you get him to Shiny level 2 later down the line, which will probably be like early January if you're doing it free to play, he will end up having the extra boost ratio. I believe by default it's 6. And per curse gem on the board, you will end up gaining 10 additional damage. And you basically want to chip them down into kill range. And if you do this, he will gain Bless, Enchant, but more importantly, he'll do basically what Megavore does. And that, also I didn't take the extra turn right there, but he'll end up armor tiering everything else on the team. So we'll end up doing this. Of course, all their armor is now gone. And now all you do is just chip them down with a skull spammer. So we go do this, boom, bunch of skull, boom, boom, boom. Oh, a little bit of skull reduction there. Oh wait, I thought we had Enrage. Oh, our Enrage must have dropped. No! I need the Enrage to be able to still get the kill. Let's see. Let's go for a little bit of mana here. I'm trying to get like a Cascade going. Yeah, we could just convert this and then do the other thing. We should be good to go. I was hoping Keeper Souls would get full mana there. Let's do one more wand. It's not that big a deal. Get our last little bit of mana and then we take the skull and it already dies. But yeah, gotta make sure his Enrage stays up so he can get into kill range. Oh no, the problem is there not a brown that does skulls that also does burn all enemies? Because the problem with Zolgoth is he doesn't use brown. I don't think there is. Skull. Any color. Base rarity. I'm pretty sure there isn't, is the problem with what we're trying to build here. You don't burn. Because I'm looking for something that's brown, burn, and skull. I believe such a thing doesn't exist to put this team together fully at the moment. Unless I'm forgetting one. Because ideally you'd want the triple damage burning with the Slayer with constant perpetual Enrage. Still have the Pharaoh for the 2 explodes plus the brown convert. Obviously you have this for its main gimmick of the 4 times armor tier kind of thing. Though in this case you could still get away with Megavore. And in the case of Explore 12, it's already enough damage, depending on what your stats are, to not even need the armor tier as we saw. At least with really high attack stat. But he still gets to create the 2 curse gems every single time. And of course some kind of skull spam, which ideally also has burn, but also uses brown. I don't believe such a thing is in the game, though, unless I'm missing something obvious here. Because it needs to be brown, skull, spam, and burn. And there's a lot of things that do 2 of those, but I don't see one that does all 3. Something like this would still end up working out. But it's basically the whole premise there. I think I'm still going to put it with the Infernus, though, because the Infernus one does seem like it does more overall damage. And, of course, you could also run it with Zolgoth if you wanted to do it that way, too. Like, run the Zolgoth route and put that there. How do you suppose Zolgoth? I haven't. Oh, yeah, because I'm on their brown thing. Because obviously it doesn't have to be brown. I end up making it pure brown. However, it doesn't actually have to be brown. How do you suppose? Am I? It is W. It's just because I had the thing there earlier. I was right. But of course, you can end up going down like Zolgoth route, other things like that. It's mostly just something that has 4 times burn is like the main thing that you're looking for here. But yeah, it's basically his premise. Is he ever going to be used that often? Maybe. He's very weird in the current state of the game. Obviously, when you get him fully maxed, he's 20 mana cost, which is 4 lower than Megavore. I keep mentioning Megavore, but of course, the main troop of comparison here is Megavore. It's 24 mana cost instead of 22, 21, or 20, which is, of course, the range of the other guy, depending on how shiny he is. But he gets to eliminate all armor with no condition at all. It just simply does it. It also has substantially more damage. They both hit for about the same number. I guess this one technically slightly more after all the curse gems and everything. However, this does true damage, so in a sense, it's doing double whatever this number says. So by default right here, we're doing like 230. Whereas this thing is doing about 150 to about 200-ish, depending on how many curse gems are on the board. So Megavore is still single targeting for more damage. And instead of gaining Bless and Enchant like this guy does, it ends up gaining Submerge. But it also already has Impervious attached to it. Whereas the closest thing this gets to Impervious is the Bless. Though the Enchant is pretty nice, though. It also has a little bit of skull reduction, instead of having nothing reduction-wise. I guess huge, technically, a little bit on this guy. I guess Impervious can also help you. But you also end up dropping, instead of mana accumulation, you don't have the insta-kill anymore. Which, of course, is a fun gimmick Megavore always had, was that very small changes instantly gets a free kill. Whereas the whole premise of this guy is he just creates more mana accumulation, so he works good with other mana accumulators to kind of assist them even further. And of course, his free curse onto the enemy team. This can backfire, though, and also give the enemy curse, but generally any team that you're running with this has enough ways to utilize the curse gems and brown in general to be able to go and utilize it immediately rather than leaving it on the board but it can occasionally lead to situations where he's cursing your own team, whereas this has nothing that can backfire at all. It just has a lot of RNG mechanics that might not trigger, but otherwise it can never actually backfire on your team, whereas this thing could technically curse your entire team accidentally, which could be a little bit of a liability depending on what kind of battle you're up against. But overall, it's just very situational Megavore. It is by far the best campaign mythic we've gotten in a while, but it's so situational that 9 times out of 10, you're probably still using Megavore, oddly enough. But in the situations where this is better, it's going to be a lot better. But it's just really, really, really conditional, which makes it a lot more situational when you put it into a team, as you need a very specific team layout and damage range to really use it correctly. Like in this particular instance, with our stats, we actually have too much stats to use this exact team correctly, at least for Explore 12. For different game modes, we could, like Underspire, high-level Underspire, this would be great. If this worked for a given restriction in high-level Underspire, you could end up using this in order to go and get them into kill range with one single skull. You then go and do triple damage because it'd be curse burned already, so you'd be able to go do that. You would then go and clear them out with this to get armor tier on the rest of the team. And then everything else will be curse burned on the team, so you can one-shot everything else with Bloodthirst. So you don't even need to worry about if they have skull dodge or skull reduction or anything, as you'll just be able to kill them all out one by one. So in those kind of situations, work out great, like 400 to 500 Underspire, stuff like that. I mean, Underworld, I mean. But, yeah, for Explore 12, you actually have so much stats in endgame that, yeah, it's actually not needed. It's actually too much damage. Oh, well. But, yeah, that's the new guy. He's not bad. He's basically alternative Megavore. But, yeah, it's the last week to go and get him. Otherwise, free-to-play will be able to go get him probably around January, February of next year. Like, really early next year, you'll be able to start getting him in shiny keys, as well as just general drop tables, as well as whenever the next Drop Zoom event rolls around. Not this current one. Speaking of which, might as well go over the event keys as far as what is and is not in drop table, as there are 1.5 billion exceptions this week as far as what is not in drop table. So, what is not in drop table? Let's go to Kingdom, go to Drop Zoom, go to Show All, Drop Zoom, Show All, Base Rarity. Okay, so everything that is not in drop table includes the Brown Doom. This is only from Brown Doom weekly guild events. The 5 troops from Alithia. This is only from throwing Chaos Shards at Alithia Underspire. So throwing it into that portal there. Other things that are not in drop table includes the current Journey Troop of wherever he is in all this mess. The Journey Troop of, we went over him earlier. Where is he? This one, the whatever that name is, the Cormac the Restless. But this guy is only from the event shop. Basically, just want to buy at least a tier 3, so you get both the weapon and him, and then just use orbs or something to go and upgrade him. But he is only in the event shop. He's not in event keys. Other things that are not in event keys is the King of Runes. It's actually no drop table at the moment. This is from the current campaign pass. So it will eventually be in the Vault Key drop table in probably a couple months from now, like early next year or late this year. However, currently it is unobtainable from anything other than the paid pass, but it's not really doing anything relevant. It's just an old tarot card, unless it gets used for something soon. But it doesn't seem like it will, but it's basically useless. But it is only in the no drop table right now, only from the campaign, and will be in Vault Key drop table in a couple months from now. And the other thing that is not in drop table includes, of course, the Gormandar. Similar situation to the Terror card in that it is from the current campaign pass, at least the basic pass. And same as his shiny tokens, both him and his shiny tokens will be coming in a few months from now. Probably sometime in January or so, though no official date as far as when that would be available. But he'll be available at a later time. Also, I just realized, he actually came out around at the same time as Megavore. Megavore came out around, gosh, 2016 or 2017 in September, like around this time. Like late August, September. I think it was September. I just realized that. And now, several years later, we got the alternative version of him in the same month. That's pretty funny. But he's not in event key drop table, of course. He's from the campaign, and eventually in standard drop tables and stuff later down the line. And, of course, the Gem Dragon is not in drop table. This is from opening the Gem Dragon eggs in Soulforge for 500 Dragonite each. So, why would you open event keys this week? That's the fun part. You don't. Event keys are pretty bad. There is not much to really get from this kingdom. There's a couple interesting skull legends, so maybe that, I guess. Like King Bloodhammer and Glaceon aren't that bad. Where's Glaceon? But yeah, there it is. Like these two legends, if you want to go for them. They're OG Doomskull troops when the Doomskull was first added to the game. So they haven't been scaled as much compared to some more modern ones, but they're still pretty decent, especially for like Drop Zoom restriction weeks. Like if you want to run them as like a budget Underspire team, if you don't want to run like the red spam weapon. So a potential option. The only problem is the enemies might hit you all hard with the Doom Skulls. As far as the Mythics, you have one of the worst Mythics in the entire game. An average mythic that you really only use in like a 4x dwarf restriction, which you can't even do for this dwarf restriction because it's specifically brown dwarves, and he's not brown, so he's not even useful this week. And Obsidius. Obsidius is probably the most useful thing here, but it's not worth doing the 1 in 3 chance. Also, it might be worth just waiting till down the line anyways, because Gormungandr, compared to these other mythics, are pretty decent. So if you wait down the line, you'll have him as a option. He's not available right now in event key drop table, but if you wait until the next Drogzoom event in like several months from now, sometime next year, he will be in the drop table then. So you'll be able to try to go for both Obsidius and him if you wanted to. The only problem is your other 2 options are kind of underwhelming as far as if you were to get them, whereas Obsidius is one of the best, if not the best stunners in the game, though he has a lot of alternatives these days between Elementalists, Ossifer, just a lot of other stun options where he's not as needed, but he's still a really solid 4x stun option. Kind of like how Infernus has a lot of different options, but he's still the best 4x burner in the game, like we were showing in that one team initially. But of course, there's things like Zolgoth, other more modern things that have kind of made it a little bit more irrelevant, and Obsidius is kind of in that category. Like, it's still technically the best 4x stunner, but to commit an entire troop just to 4x stunning generally isn't worth it compared to other stun value currently in the game. And then, of course, we have this later down the line, not right now, but it'd be the main reason why you'd probably want to wait to open event keys for this place. And it also isn't anywhere near close to being max, and because of that, it's probably going to get a lot more events in the future. Actually, I say that, it's actually been getting closer and closer. But it's still probably going to have another event in the somewhat near future where you'll be able to go on event key for all that stuff. So for now, I would pretty much just full skip unless you really want to try for like 20 star or something. If you don't already have that for the extra, is it armor or attack? I don't remember. Yeah, attack value. So this is actually a pretty good one to upgrade. So if you haven't gotten your 5 star, 10 star, 20 star kingdom upgrade yet, you might want to consider it for that. But otherwise, there's pretty much no reason you'd really want to go for event keys this week. Unless you just kind of want to build up your underspare team if you don't want to go down that red weapon route, or if you don't have the resources to craft that red weapon. Anyways, beyond that, other things to mention. This is the final week to spend any of your points for the Beast event we had the last 2 weeks. You can no longer earn any more points this week, but for the next 7 days, if you have any points left, you can go spend them. I was saying the main priority is to go and get the golden version of the pet fully maxed out, as the golden versions have never returned, and getting the standard pet all the way max is basically like a free pet orb, so really good value. Next priority being the power orb, cheapest power orb you can ever get. Third being Cosmo. At this point, you don't really need it unless you plan on really using it. This will be available on drop table in about a couple months or so. And the armor you can just get any year, so, and it's fully cosmetic, so you can just wait on that. But I would say prioritize the pet for the most part, as you get a free extra cosmetic pet, and you'll basically get 1 power orb worth of pet copies, which is really nice just for having it maxed out already, which of course ends up assisting Cosmo down the line if you ever get it. But that's pretty much the breakdown. Prioritize pet, orb, troop, which is becoming back anyways, and then the armor. Same as the pet, but it's just way cheaper to end up doing it through this event rather than spending any resource for it down the line. Beyond that, this Tuesday, we have ourselves the faction event for Alithia, blue-purple restriction. Nothing really too special with it, but just standard blue-purple. Wednesday, we have another pet coming in, not a new one, just one from, is that Drogzoom? I want to say Drogzoom. That's not even from Drogzoom, is it? I don't remember. It should be a Drogzoom pet. Normally they are associated with the kingdom. Thursday, we have the Drogzoom class, Slayer class. Slayer is very niche, but really good. It basically has perpetual enrage. It says enrage per extra turn and enrage on kill. So unless they have Dispel or something else that really disables it out, you basically have perpetual enrage for an entire battle. It also has triple damage burning, which makes it the high skull damage class in the entire game, as both enrage and burning does stack. And the nice thing about that too is it allows you to hit through skull reduction traits. So if they have dodge rate, if they have skull reduction directly through like stone skin 50% or anything else, you just completely bypass that and just hit for full damage. So not only are you hitting for 4.5 times skull damage, but you're also hitting through every single trait. It is a really, really good skull-oriented class. The biggest 2 issues with it is it does not have 50% mana start, so it's really slow to get that initial mana, and it basically requires you to have burn, or even cursed burn, depending on what kind of game mode you're doing on your team. So to be able to have to put both curse and burn onto your team can be a little bit clunky sometimes, as there's not as many options you can end up doing to end up getting both, especially since obviously you can't run Elementalist class since you're running Slayer, so you specifically have to do it with troops. You can't do it with a different option, so it does leave you with a bit less options than you otherwise would, as you need a good way to 4 times curse and 4 times burn very quickly in a given battle, while also ideally still having skull spell on your team. But it is a really good hero class. Very situational when you bring it out, but the strongest skull-oriented class in the entire game for just sheer amount of damage. And just Fridays, we went over earlier with the new bounty troop, that one brown yellow eagle thingy. We have that going on. Not really too special with it. Standard event. Always worth doing the free battles. A little pricey to do the paid battles, but you do get a max troop out of it and everything. It's like 800-ish gems, give or take a little bit to go and complete out the event. Pretty quick event, takes like half an hour to an hour to end up finishing with end game stuff. And even earlier on in the game doesn't take too long, as you could just use the bounty hunter troops and do full score if you wanted to, which gets the event done a little bit slower, but maximizes the amount of points you get per sigil. So if you don't have any of the really good options, you can just go for the max score route. And yeah, that's everything with that. We already went over Soulforge earlier, but it is worth iterating just one last time. Do not forget to go get Ala Al-Din if you're later in the game. This is the first time he has been available. I think the first time any of these have been available, unless I forgot a week. So yeah, definitely as you start rolling in, make sure to get them. I'm pretty sure most people haven't been getting the 4,000 diamond ones, or the the 2,500 gold mark ones, I mean. So it's definitely worth just later down the line getting it with diamonds, especially if you're at the point in the game where you have more diamonds than you ever know what to do with. Though even if you're not at this point, it is probably still worth it to spend 4,000 diamonds on them rather than 2,500 gold marks. It's just better spent doing those on things like deed books and such. And of course, if any of the 800 diamond ones rotate around as well, the legends, they're worth going for too. Those are normally worthwhile to go get the PvP points on and just dump silver marks on them. But if you didn't end up doing those on the PvP season, if you just don't like doing a lot of PvP, those also rotate for 800 diamonds when they eventually go and rotate around into Soulforge for the same cost as any other legend would. And of course, as far as we mentioned, weapons, don't forget Stone Slicer. Really good. Great for construct teams with 50% Mana Star off of Geomancer. We have the Ankh of Nefertani for 2 out of 3 pieces in recent time to go get Dustbringer. Even if you don't want Dustbringer, you should be getting the Component, so you eventually can craft it. Even if you don't eventually want to get it, you still want to have the Component, so you can eventually. And beyond that, really good this week. And for Red Guild War, I guess, technically, too. And a lot of various events. Just any kind of time when you're kind of restricted to red or don't have as many good options but are allowed to use red is Doomed Impaler. Really great with 4 times red team. And really great budget option for Underspire this week, as well as potentially Guild War, if you want to build Guild War into it. Probably not your best option for Guild War, but it might be depending on what you have laying around, so worth considering since Red Guild War is literally in 2 weeks from now, as it's in, actually we can see it in the game, it's Thursday 2 weeks from now, unless the patch gets delayed again. But Thursday 2 weeks from now is when the next Guild War ends up starting, and it is specifically red restriction, which means your weapon also has to be red, but it also means your entire team will be red, so you get a lot of value from using that weapon, because there's probably going to be at least 1 or 2 reds on the enemy team. But it also means defensively, you probably don't want to use too many reds on your team, on a lot of the defense teams to try to counter out that weapon. Though I'm not really sure how many people in endgame would really be running it, but it's definitely going to be a really common budget option in like lower to mid guilds. But in endgame, I'm pretty sure most people won't be running that weapon, but it's a great budget option otherwise. Anyways, anything else we haven't gone over? I guess the new troop, actually, I didn't even buy it. I noticed in that one menu, I didn't even bother getting it because I saw how weak it was. It's like, oh, I didn't even bother clicking it up. But anyways, we got the Forsaken Guardian. He deals a bunch of damage to 2 random enemies boosted by Curse Gems, then create 4 Curse Gems. Problem with this is there's not enough Curse Gems to go land an extra turn, so you're basically just giving the enemy 4 times Curse onto yourself. And yeah, that's basically it. There are many, many better things you could be running for damage out there. It does get to feed mana back into itself, which I guess is fine. But overall, its traits are abysmal. You're just allowing the enemy to 4 times curse your team. I just don't really see a situation where you would ever really want to use this, but of course, like all these, still worth going and getting them to go max it out. And since this is an epic, you do get them for only effectively 200 glory each if you need any arcanes. So if you do need those arcanes, great time to go and stock up on them. Also, I like getting the 3 extra in case we ever need to run 2, 3, or 4 of them on a team for some reason. We're not going to need to, but out of habit, I do always do that. Just to make sure we have enough. Also, one thing I also do, which I think I already grabbed earlier, is all the way to the left here in resources. Don't forget, you can get your 10 event keys every single week for 180 glory each for 1,800 glory total. Is for whatever reason disappears after you get it, but of course don't forget to go grab that, as that is pretty good value. Since it's basically the only time you ever get to buy event keys for something that isn't gems. Though I guess you get quite a bit of them these days from Vault event weekends and such, so not as big a deal. And as we mentioned, probably a pretty skippable week for Droxzoom as well for event keys, unless you're looking to hit a milestone for 5, 10, or 20 star, if you're just missing that last little bit of upgrade to go and do that. But otherwise, you shouldn't really be doing it unless you're securing a extra stat from Droxzoom, and just wait until the better drop table for when the Droxzoom event rolls around next time around, because then you'll be able to go get the campaign mythic with event keys, which you cannot do this week. Do not try to do it. However, next Droxzoom event you will be able to go get this. So if you're playing free to play, yeah, you definitely wait until then, as you'll be able to try to get this thing then, or just wait until it rotates in Soulforge. And I believe that's everything. If you guys still have any other questions, feel free to leave in the comment section below. Of course, as I mentioned, the link to the full patch notes, if you want to go read over that, will be in the description. I'll probably go over it again a little bit, the patch as well, once the patch actually hits. Could be tomorrow, but if I had to guess, it will probably be next week's Tuesday. So on that following Monday, we'd probably go over in that week's video just to kind of mention it, as well as its applicableness to the Guild War, since of course that would also be the Guild War week by that week, and we'll kind of go from there. And of course we got the new Mythic this Friday too, so don't forget to go and do all of your Glory Gem Guild and VIP chests. Try not to spend the ones you got from Vault Weekend, but maybe open your Vault keys, but don't spend your keys quite yet, because this Friday into the following Friday, we will have a new Mythic, which of course we'll be covering this Friday. And that new Mythic, of course, Glory Gem Guild and VIP chests, as far as the keys that are in. And you're going to want to go and save your keys that you got from last Vault Weekend, if you don't have a big reserve of them, in order to go try for that new Mythic. And yeah, make sure to go and secure that. So don't use all your Vault Weekend keys quite yet, because you're going to end up needing it for this Friday then and that following week. But anyways, guys, I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye, everyone, and thanks for watching.